Well, thank you so much for letting me present this. As Ben said earlier, the registry is in progress. It is the first in the world. New Zealand has got a registry, but it's more to do with pathology, and it was only a window of opportunity that they sort of took a snapshot, and it hasn't been ongoing information. So the Planet Registry is a new era in the optimal planning of treatment and research of neuroendocrine tumours, and that's in Australia, and we're hoping that we're going to roll it out internationally after that. And it does include the mobile app, which has been developed by Melbourne University, and it's being tested at the moment, and everybody will have the opportunity when they're registered with the registry. So I will move on to the next. I'll try to. Yep. Okey-doke. So I've just put up there again just to reiterate the mission of the Unicorn Foundation, where we assist and support patients and carers, and 3 support groups and access to expertise with all the networks, lobbying for access, raising awareness, and also to encourage and support Australian research, of which this registry will be a vital tool. So the aim of the registry is, the overall aim is to create an Australia-wide national clinical registry for NETs, and it'll be to collate key data to evaluate patient outcomes, leading to valuable improvements in the clinical practice. And the doctors will actually be, well, we're still debating about this, the doctors, whether they're going to be actually inputting the data, or we actually provide data managers to input the data, but it will come from their diagnosis, their treatments, everything to do with the patient, and it'll all be there, which will actually help us to define where patients are with NETs, what type of NETs we've got in Australia, the numbers, treatments that are best practice, treatments that could be improved, and areas that we could look at research. So it also gives the patients a unique opportunity to directly contribute to specific data. So we really want to work in partnership with every patient that's going to be using this. So the method is going to be, the registry is going to adopt a unique multidisciplinary approach with involvement of oncologists, physicians, endocrinologists, surgeons, gastroenterologists, nuclear medicine, pathologists, radiologists, specialist nurses and consumers, supported by targeted security-oriented web platforms. So it is going to be secure, not like my health record, but this has been totally secured. So the initial stage of the registry was supported by Ipsen with a grant, and then it's being sponsored and going forward by the Unicorn Foundation. So the objectives are to collect data on patients with NETs from hospitals within Australia that can subsequently be used for specific scientific research to support improved understanding and treatment of NETs. And this also provides a platform that can be used for medical research through trials and studies associated with NET patients. And it's noted that ethics for these future studies will be applied for on a case-by-case basis through the appropriate ethical bodies. And we are going through Peter Mac for the original ethics submission. We're about 2 inches away from having it totally approved. It's been a very long, drawn-out process because every T has to be crossed, every I has to be dotted, and then they'll find something in the footer that's not quite right. So we're working our way through it, but we have made sure that it has gone through ethics. Most of the hospitals actually will go on the back of the Peter MacCallum ethics. There are a couple of hospitals that won't accept the Peter MacCallum ethics, and so we'll go through Bellbury, but everything will be totally approved. It's also to identify the medical needs of NET patients and to determine resources needed to treat patients with NETs and to aid in the planning of future NET research, as I said. So there is an app, and patients are empowered to contribute to this registry through accompanying privacy protected mobile applications. So we've got the app that's just playing here, and I'll talk through various parts of it. So it is all de-identified when you actually have the registry or you're registered with it. The doctor will give you a secure code, and so all the information that goes in it is de-identified. Only the doctor will actually know who has that number for that patient. So it goes through all the disclaimers, all the privacy acts. You have to consent to be on it, and then you can click through all the different areas. So it does have the quality of life, which Erin actually had in some of the areas of hers, which is the ERTC, which is an international quality of life, which is a general one, and also net specific. So when you go into the quality of life, you actually bring up a new plan, and then you'll go through. Every time you enter in the data, it actually will graph everything. So it's an ongoing record of what's going on. The doctor can actually go into this app and see what your plan is and the graphs and everything. So as you go through and click on each of these, there's no text in it, it's just clicking on the buttons, but it's intuitive. So if you miss a field, you have to go back and finish it to make sure that all the data that's going in there is complete, and then we're not getting any skewed results. So you can see that it goes through everything from being tired, irritable, diarrhoea, tense, any difficulties with any activities at all. And there's 51 fields in that, so.
You might say, Meredith, that's a quality of life that they're doing already in the hospital as well, so it's not different to...
Yeah. So just Simone's just prompting me here, but when you actually do go in for your consults with your doctors, they are going through a lot of the quality of life already, so it's not an additional task that the doctors are actually doing. I know a lot of hospitals, you do go in and you fill out a form before you see the doctor, and it's got a lot of questions and everything there, so it's actually streamlining the consult for you and for the doctor. So as I said, yes, it goes through and does all the graphing. The next one is very useful for patients with the Bristol Stool scale, and this one is, when it comes up, very picture or diagrammatic. So you slide it along and it will actually let you say exactly what time you did it and what it looks like. So it's a great record to work out if you are having any sort of abnormal bowel actions and whether there's sort of any patterns that we can sort of find out about. The next one is the weekly vitals, which has got your height, weight and your BMI on it, and so we can monitor what the weight's doing over a regular period of time. So as you can see, it's quite easy to just click through, and even if you've got fat fingers, I think it's pretty easy to use. And then once you enter it, it presses send and that just records everything for you. And as you can see, we can watch to see what's happening with your weight. And the last one is ECOG, which is the a European, international standard for looking at your performance status to see 0 is where you perform normally, which goes through to number 4, which is basically where you're in bed and you're unable to do anything. So we can monitor how your performance is and whether any sort of you're dropping off at all with any of your performance there. So I think that's pretty much what's in there. Oh, I've got that further. Yeah. So you can set it to different font sizes and everything like that, but it is going to be a valuable tool. There's a couple of other features which I'll just mention shortly. I think. Yep. And when you actually do get the app, we're working through an instruction list for you, and we're also going to have hopefully some volunteers around to help with instructing, so that if you are finding it a little bit difficult to manoeuvre through, we're going to do troubleshooting and instruction sheets for you so that it's a good guide for you.
What medium will the app be on?
What? It's Apple or iPhone and Android. They're both compatible. So with the patient-reported outcomes, as I said, it's to collect patient performance status and quality of life of information, and so that we can communicate with the treating clinician, and it will act as a baseline information for future suitability for clinical trials. So with the information that goes into it, the doctors can actually look at a clinical trial criteria, go in, get the data with what's been recorded, and see if there's patients who are going to be possible that they can go onto that clinical trial, and then it will push an alert through to that patient and say there could be potentially be a trial that's available to you. So it was going to be a wonderful tool to enable further research and for patients to actually sort of have access to know what's going on. So as I said, why it's so important, it's the first net registry in the world. Initially there's going to be 5 states that are going to be using it. So we've got Fiona Stanley over in Western Australia. We've got 2 sites in South Australia. There's 1 site, Peter Mac, in Victoria. There's 4 sites in New South Wales, and then there's 2 sites in Queensland. So they're the pilot sites, and we'll be getting everything happening at Peter Mac to start off with, and then we'll roll it out to Royal North Shore and then the other sites in New South Wales. And then I think South Australia won't be far away, and so will Queensland. So with Western Australia, it's a little different because you have to go through a slightly different ethics pathway, and they have their own portal that you have to get ethics approval, and then their other standards that you have to go through. So it's a lot of hoops that you have to jump through with each of them. But with this, the registry, we are really looking at the partnership that's going to happen between clinicians and the patients, because this is how we're going to make it work with the 2 of you working through together. We've developed in consultation with patients, and we've put it through our consumer advisory group, and it's also with the Planet Registry Committee, of which we've got, I think there's about 10 doctors that we've been working with, our staff, and there's also the net nurse and consumer input. So we wanted to make sure that it's truly going to get the information that's going to be useful. We don't... Yep.
So what about the ACT?
We'll work through sort of some of the other centres sort of once we've got the pilot up, and we need to have the doctors that are going to be interested in being part of it. So I know there is a doctor that I've met recently up at Australian Gastrointestinal Trials Group in Brisbane, who is going to be moving to the ACT in January, and he has a specific interest in NET, so I think that could be a good avenue to get things happening, as well as the clinicians that are there. We'll be working closely with and urging.
So do we as patients, should we be pushing for that, advocating?
I think in partnership we can push. I think we possibly don't want to put the horse before the cart, and we want to get the clinicians on board, especially so they know that this is going to be something that's useful, and it's not just going to be information that's just going to be collected and not used. So we want it to be a useful registry for everybody. So the only patients, as I said, linked to the registry will get the access to the app, and you have the unique code and de-identification, and it enables patients to fill in how they're feeling with the quality of life, Bristol stool scale, ECOG, and all the measurements. And the app is only effective if it's used. The information that is gathered currently is part of the clinical care, as I said, and management, however, it provides a consistent and streamlined system of collection to monitor live data through the registry and the app, and it reduces stress and paperwork. And currently we are going through Peter Mac, nearly there and rolling out. It's for research development, and this app does contribute to cancer research. As I said, clinical trials will be push alerts for that, and we're looking at optimising treatment and enhancement of care ultimately. So what next? As I said, once we've got the approval from Peter McCallum, the data will be programmatically ingested into the registry and analysed over the next 12 months. And each of the sites have control over their own information. So whatever the doctors want to get out of this app, out of the registry, they can, but it is national as well, so we will put it through sort of for people to get approval for various other data. But as I said, it's all de-identified. We're getting the statistics, not the person's name. So we'll have a range of clinical trials and observational studies can be identified, and patients will, subject to consent and ethics, be recruited to these studies, and it's Australasia-wide benchmarking. So we need to compare apples with apples. There's no point in collecting data that's going to be different at each site. We need to be able to benchmark with the data that's going to be consistent so that we can look at patient management and it'll be well supported. And so far we've been putting together lots of posters and presenting this at a lot of national and international conferences and journals. So it's been recognised by government as well as being world class, and the international clinicians have been extremely interested in it as well. And it's only happened through the commitment and collaboration of the committee that we've got. And we had a registry dinner the other night with some of the international speakers, and it was a constant 2.5-hour conversation about it, but they're really impressed with what we're doing and excited about what's happening. So help us to help you and get involved with it. Thank you.